The palace gates stood silent that morning. No crowds, no cameras, just the echo of boots on stone as the royal guard marched in formation. But someone was missing. Princess Kate had not been seen in public for 43 days. The whispers had started weeks ago. First in the tabloids, then on social media, then in living rooms across the country. Where was she? Why had she disappeared? The palace said she needed rest. But rest from what? The official statements were vague, careful, cold. They gave no answers. Only more questions. And then, on a gray Wednesday morning in March, something changed. A side door opened at Kensington Palace. A figure stepped out. Dressed in black, moving slowly alone, it was her. Kate walked toward the courtyard where the guard was assembled. Her face was pale, her eyes tired, but her shoulders were back, her chin lifted. She was there. And she was walking. The guards did not break formation. They could not, but every man felt it. The air shifted. Something unspoken passed between them. This was not a royal appearance. This was something else. Before we continue, if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Kate reached the edge of the courtyard. The commanding officer glanced at her just once. A flicker of recognition, of respect. He did not salute. He did not bow. He simply nodded, and then he gave the order. The guard began to march, and Kate walked beside them, not in front, not behind. Beside them, step for step. In silence, the boots hit the ground in rhythm. Her heels clicked softly on the stone. No music, no ceremony. Just the sound of movement, of presence, of something deeper than words. The guards had escorted royals 1,000 times, but never like this. This was not duty. This was solidarity. Kate's hands were clasped in front of her. Her breathing was steady, but her jaw was tight. She was holding something back. Grief, maybe. Or pain. Or both. But she kept walking. The march led them through the inner grounds. Past the rose gardens. Past the old chapel. The wind picked up, pulling at her coat. She did not flinch. One of the younger guards, a man named Thomas, felt his throat tighten. He had stood at attention through storms, through protests, through the death of a queen. But this quiet walk was breaking something in him. He did not know why she was there. He did not know what she had been through, but he knew this. She was not asking for sympathy. She was asking to be seen, as a person, as someone who had suffered, as someone still standing. The march continued. 5 minutes, then 10. The silence grew heavier, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that holds weight, that carries meaning. And then, just as they neared the final turn, Kate stopped. The guard stopped with her. She turned to face them. Her eyes moved across the line of men, each face, each uniform. She was looking at them, really looking. And then she did something no one expected. She placed her hand over her heart. The gesture lasted only a moment, but it said everything. Thank you. The commanding officer felt his chest tighten. He had trained for every possible scenario. Emergency evacuations, hostile threats, public unrest, but no one had trained him for this. For a princess standing in front of his men, vulnerable and exhausted, offering gratitude without words, he wanted to respond, to say something. But protocol held him in place, so he did the only thing he could. He straightened his posture, and he held her gaze. The other guards followed. Every man in the line stood taller, not because they were ordered to, but because something in them demanded it. Kate lowered her hand. She turned away slowly, as if the weight on her shoulders had doubled, but she did not stumble. She walked back toward the palace entrance alone once more. The guard remained frozen until she disappeared through the door. Only then did the officer give the order to dismiss. The men broke formation in silence. No one spoke. No one joked. They simply walked away, each carrying something they could not name. Thomas. The young guard found himself standing by the barracks window an hour later. He was staring out at the courtyard, replaying the moment in his mind. Why had she come? What had driven her out of the palace after all those weeks? His captain entered the room. A man named Clark. Older, scarred, rarely emotional. You feel it too? Clark said quietly. Thomas nodded. What was that? Clark was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. I served her husband's family for 15 years. I've seen them celebrate. I've seen them mourn. But I've never seen one of them walk with us like that. Like an equal. Do you know what happened to her? Clark shook his head. Not the details. But I know enough. She's been fighting something. Something private. Something heavy. Thomas turned. Then why come out? Why now? Because, Clark said, she needed to show them she's still here. Not the cameras. Not the press, them, the people who protect her every day. The ones who stand in the rain and the cold and the silence. She needed us to see her. And she needed to see us. It made sense. But it also didn't. Why would a princess, someone with everything, need to prove anything to anyone? Clark seemed to read his mind. You think titles protect you from pain? Thomas said nothing. They don't, Clark continued. They just make it harder to show. She's been carrying something alone. And today, she stopped pretending she could. The next morning, the tabloids exploded. Someone had seen her. A palace gardener. A staff member. The story leaked. Within hours, the headlines were everywhere. Princess Kate breaks silence with royal guard. Emotional tribute shocks palace staff. What is Kate hiding? The photos were blurry. Taken from a distance, but they showed her. Walking beside the guards, hand over heart. Face tight with emotion, the public went wild. Social media erupted. Some praised her courage. Others demanded answers. What was she going through? Why had she been hidden for so long? The palace released a statement. Brief, controlled. The Princess of Wales is grateful for the continued support of the Royal Guard and the public. She asks for privacy during this time. But privacy was impossible now. The world had seen her. And the world wanted more. Kate, inside the palace, sat by a window. She was reading the headlines on a tablet. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from exhaustion. From the weight of being seen when she had not wanted to be, but she had known this would happen. She had known the moment she stepped outside, someone would talk. Someone would tell, and the story would spread. She had done it anyway, because silence had been killing her. 3 weeks earlier, the diagnosis had come. Kate had been sitting in a private medical office. White walls, sterile light, the kind of room that felt too clean, too cold. Her husband William sat beside her, holding her hand. The doctor had spoken calmly, professionally, but the words hit like stones. Cancer, early stage, treatable, but cancer. Nonetheless, the world outside that room continued. People laughed. People worked. People lived. But inside that room, time stopped. Kate had nodded. She had asked questions. She had stayed composed. But inside, something cracked. Not her strength. Her certainty. The belief that she was untouchable. That she could manage anything. That her role, her position, would somehow protect her. It didn't. She was just a person. Flesh and blood, breakable. The decision had been immediate. No public announcement, not yet. The children needed to be told first, gently, carefully, and she needed time. Time to process. Time to prepare. Time to breathe without cameras watching her every move. So the palace had issued vague statements. Rest, recovery, privacy, the press had speculated. The rumors had grown. But Kate had stayed hidden until she couldn't anymore. The silence had become suffocating. The isolation, unbearable. She was surrounded by people, by staff, by family, but she felt alone. Alone with a secret that was eating her from the inside. And then one morning, she had seen them. The Royal Guard, marching in formation, doing their duty, day after day. Without praise, without acknowledgement, just showing up. Something in her broke, or maybe something in her healed. She realized she needed to do the same. To show up, not for the cameras, not for the public, but for herself. To prove she was still here, still standing, still fighting. So she had walked out. And she had walked beside them now, sitting by the window. She wondered if it had been a mistake. The headlines were relentless. The speculation worse than before. People wanted answers. They wanted to know what was wrong, why she had disappeared, what the walk had meant, but she couldn't tell them. Not yet. William entered the room. He looked tired. The last few weeks had aged him. He sat beside her, silent for a moment. "They're calling you brave," he said quietly. Kate shook her head. "I don't feel brave." "You are." "I just walked," she said. "That's all. I just walked." "No," William said. "You showed up when you didn't have to. When you could have stayed hidden. That's bravery." Kate looked at him. His eyes were red. He had been crying. She knew that look. He was terrified. Terrified of losing her. Terrified of what was coming. But he was holding it together. For her. For the children. She reached for his hand. "I'm going to be okay." "You don't know that." "I do," she said. "Because I have to be." It wasn't confidence. It was defiance. A refusal to let the diagnosis define her. A refusal to disappear. William squeezed her hand. "The children are asking about you." Kate's heart clenched. George, Charlotte, Louis. They knew something was wrong. They were too smart not to notice. But they didn't know the full truth. "Not yet?" "What did you tell them?" "That you're resting. That you'll be back soon." Kate closed her eyes. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe she could return to normal. To dinners and school runs and bedtime stories. To the life she had before the diagnosis. But something had changed. She had changed. The walk with the guard had not been about them. It had been about her. About reclaiming something she thought she had lost. Control, purpose, dignity. She opened her eyes. "I want to see them." William nodded. "They're downstairs." Kate stood slowly. Her body ached. The treatment had started. The side effects were beginning. But she pushed through. She walked to the door, paused, looked back at William. "I'm not going to hide anymore." William smiled. A small, sad smile. "I know." She walked downstairs. The children were in the living room. George was reading. Charlotte was drawing. Louis was playing with toy soldiers. They looked up when she entered. For a moment, no one moved. Then Charlotte ran to her. Arms outstretched. Kate knelt down, ignoring the pain, and pulled her daughter close. George and Louis followed. They surrounded her. A small, perfect moment of warmth in the middle of the storm. Kate held them. She breathed them in, and she made a silent promise she would fight. Not just for herself, but for them. The treatment began in earnest the following week. Early mornings, quiet rooms, needles and machines and sterile smells. Kate sat through each session with her jaw set, her eyes focused on something beyond the walls. Beyond the pain, William came when he could, but he had duties. Appearances. The world did not stop for personal tragedy. So often Kate went alone, or with a single nurse. A woman named Helen, who spoke little but whose presence was steady. Reliable, Helen had worked with cancer patients for 20 years. She had seen fear. She had seen denial. She had seen collapse. But Kate, she was different. Kate was silent. Not cold, not distant, just silent, as if speaking would make it too real. One morning, after a particularly difficult session, Helen sat beside her. Kate was staring at the floor. Her hands were trembling. "You don't have to be strong all the time," Helen said gently. Kate looked at her. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because if I'm not, who will be?" Helen understood. Kate wasn't just fighting cancer. She was fighting the weight of expectation. The pressure to be perfect, to be composed, to be the princess Everyone needed her to be, Helen said. The strongest people I've ever met are the ones who admit they're scared. Kate's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. I'm terrified, I know. The tears came then. Not a flood, just a quiet release. Helen handed her a tissue. Kate took it, wiped her face. And then, for the first time in weeks, she laughed. A small, broken laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. I cried in front of a nurse, Kate said. How very unroyal of me. Helen smiled. You're human. That's more important. Back at the palace, life continued. Meetings, schedules, public statements. But beneath it all, a quiet shift was happening. The staff noticed it first. Kate was different. Less polished. Less perfect. She smiled more. She asked questions. She stopped pretending everything was fine. One afternoon, she walked into the staff kitchen. The room froze. Princesses did not enter staff kitchens. Not without warning. Not without reason, but Kate was there. In jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back. No makeup. I'm making tea, she said. Does anyone want some? The silence stretched. Then a young assistant named Lily spoke up. I'll have one. Milk, no sugar. Kate smiled. Coming right up. She moved around the kitchen like she belonged there, filling the kettle, finding the mugs. The staff watched, unsure, but slowly they relaxed. Someone laughed. Someone else made a joke. And suddenly, the room felt normal. Human Kate handed Lily her tea. Thank you for everything you do, Lily blinked. I'm just doing my job. I know, Kate said, but I don't say it enough. Thank you. The moment spread through the palace like wildfire. The princess had made tea. She had thanked the staff. She had been real. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a speech. It was just a moment. But moments, Kate was learning, mattered more than she had ever realized. That evening, she sat with William in their private quarters. The children were asleep. The palace was quiet. Kate was exhausted, but she felt lighter, as if something heavy had been lifted. I went to the staff kitchen today, she said. William raised an eyebrow. You did what? I made tea. He stared at her. Then he laughed. A real, full laugh. You made tea? Yes, in the staff kitchen. Yes. He shook his head, still smiling. You're changing. I know. It's good, he said. It's really good. Kate leaned against him. I don't want to be perfect anymore. I just want to be here. Present. Alive. William kissed the top of her head. You've always been alive. You're just letting people see it now. She closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt something close to peace. But the outside world was still churning. The press was relentless. Theories multiplied. Some claimed she was having a breakdown. Others said she was hiding a scandal. The truth, the simple, human truth, was buried beneath speculation. And then a letter arrived. It was from Thomas, the young guard who had walked beside her that morning. He had written it by hand. Simple words, but powerful. Your Highness, I don't know what you're going through, but I want you to know that walking beside you that morning was the greatest honor of my career. Not because you're a princess, but because you showed up when you didn't have to. You reminded me why I serve. Thank you. Kate read the letter 3 times. She folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer, and then she made a decision. It was time to tell the truth. The video was recorded in the garden. Natural light. No makeup, no script. Just Kate, sitting on a bench looking directly at the camera. William had wanted to be there, but she had asked to do it alone. This was her story, her truth, and she needed to tell it her way. The camera rolled. Kate took a breath, and she began. I wanted to speak to you directly, to explain why I've been away, and to share something deeply personal. Her voice was steady, calm, but her hands folded in her lap were gripping each other tightly. In January, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was a shock. To me, to my family, to everyone who loves me. The past few months have been incredibly difficult, but they've also taught me something important. That hiding doesn't help. That silence doesn't protect. And that being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's strength. She paused, swallowed. I am undergoing treatment, and I am doing well. But this journey is not easy. There are hard days. Days when I don't feel strong. Days when I question everything. But I have a family who supports me, a medical team who cares for me, and a reason to keep fighting. My children, my husband, my life. Her eyes glistened, but she did not cry. I want to thank the Royal Guard for their service, for standing beside me, even when I couldn't stand beside them. And I want to thank all of you for your patience, your kindness, your understanding. I know there have been questions, speculation, and I'm sorry for the worry I've caused. But I needed time. Time to process. Time to heal. Time to be human. A small, genuine smile. I will return to my duties when I am able. But for now, I am focusing on my health, on my family, and on living each day with gratitude. Thank you for allowing me that space. The camera stopped. Kate sat in silence for a long moment. Then she stood, walked inside, and collapsed into William's arms. The video was released the next morning. Within an hour, the world reacted. The headlines shifted. No more speculation. No more rumors. Just support. Just love. Princess Kate reveals cancer diagnosis in emotional video. The world stands with Kate. A royal's courage inspires millions. Messages poured in. From world leaders, from celebrities, from strangers. People shared their own stories of illness, of loss, of survival. Kate had opened a door, and the world had walked through it with her. Thomas, the young guard, watched the video in his barracks. He felt his throat tighten. So that was what she had been carrying. That was the weight he had seen in her eyes. He thought about the walk, about her hand over her heart, and he understood now. She had not been thanking them for their service. She had been thanking them for being there, for witnessing her, for standing beside her when she felt most alone. He picked up his phone, typed a message to his captain. She's braver than any soldier I've ever met. Clark replied immediately. Agreed. Back at the palace, Kate was reading the messages. Thousands of them. She couldn't respond to them all, but she read as many as she could. Each one a small thread of connection, a reminder that she was not alone. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Sarah, a mother of 3, a cancer survivor, Your Highness. I was diagnosed 5 years ago. I thought my life was over, but it wasn't. It was just beginning. You will get through this, and you will be stronger because of it. Thank you for showing us that even princesses are human. It gives the rest of us permission to be human too. Kate saved the message. She would carry it with her. A reminder, a promise. That evening, she had dinner with her children. A normal dinner. Pasta, laughter, stories about school. Charlotte told a joke. Louis spilled his juice. George asked if they could watch a movie. It was ordinary. Beautifully, perfectly ordinary, and for the first time in months, Kate felt like herself again. Not the princess. Not the public figure. Just Kate. A mother. A wife. A woman fighting her way back to life. After the children were in bed, she stood at the window, looking out at the palace grounds. The guard was marching in the distance, their boots hitting the ground in rhythm, steady, reliable, unchanging. She thought about that morning, about the walk, about the silence. It had not been about courage. It had been about surrender, about admitting she needed help, about letting people see her struggle. And in that moment, she had found something she didn't know she was looking for herself. 6 months passed. The treatment continued. Some days were good, some were unbearable. But Kate kept moving forward. One step, one breath. One moment at a time, she attended a few small events, private gatherings, charity meetings, Nothing major. Nothing that demanded perfection. Just presence. And everywhere she went, people responded differently. They saw her now, not as a princess, but as a person. Someone who had suffered. Someone who had survived. Someone still fighting at a children's hospital. A young girl with leukemia asked to meet her. The girl's name was Emma. She was 9 years old, bald from chemotherapy, thin and pale, but her eyes were bright. Kate sat beside her bed, held her hand, and listened as Emma talked about her favorite books, her dreams of becoming a dancer, her fear of needles. When it was time to leave, Emma looked at Kate with sudden seriousness. "Are you scared?" Emma asked. Kate paused. No one had asked her that. Not so directly. Not so honestly, as Kate said. "I'm scared sometimes." Emma nodded. "Me too. But you know what?" Kate said. "Being scared doesn't mean we're weak. It means we're alive. And as long as we're alive, we can keep fighting."
Emma smiled.
"I like that." Kate kissed her forehead. "Keep dancing, Emma. Even if it's just in your mind. Keep dancing." As she left the hospital, Kate felt something shift inside her. She had spent so long trying to be strong for everyone else. But maybe strength wasn't about hiding fear. Maybe it was about sharing it. About letting others see that even in darkness there was still light. The months turned. Autumn arrived. The leaves fell. The air grew cold. And Kate's treatment neared its end. The final scan came in November. She sat in the same sterile room where it had all begun. William beside her. The doctor reviewing the results, and then the words she had been waiting for. Clear. No signs of cancer. Kate closed her eyes, breathed. William squeezed her hand so hard it hurt. But she didn't care. She was alive. She was here. She was okay. The palace announced the news the next day. The response was overwhelming. Celebrations, relief, joy. The world had been holding its breath. And now it could exhale. But Kate did not rush back into the spotlight. She had learned something in those months. That life was not about appearances. It was about moments. About presence. About love. She spent more time with her children. She walked in the gardens. She wrote letters to people who had supported her. She lived quietly, intentionally, gratefully, and then, one morning in December, she walked out to the courtyard again. The royal guard was assembled. The same formation, the same rhythm. Thomas was there. Clark was there. And when they saw her, they stood taller. Kate smiled. She was wearing her coat, her hair pulled back. No makeup, no pretense, just her. She walked to the center of the courtyard. The officer approached. He saluted. But this time Kate saluted back. The gesture stunned him. Princesses did not salute, but Kate did, because she understood now. Respect was not about rank. It was about recognition, about honoring those who stood beside you in the hardest moments. The officer lowered his hand. "Welcome back, Your Highness." Kate nodded. "It's good to be back." The guard began to march. And once again, Kate walked beside them. But this time, it felt different. Lighter. Not a tribute to pain, but a celebration of survival. They marched through the palace grounds. Past the rose gardens. Past the chapel. The wind was cold, but Kate didn't mind. She was alive to feel it when they reached the final turn. Kate stopped. The guard stopped. She turned to face them, and she spoke. Not loudly, but clearly. "Thank you for standing with me. Not just today, but every day. Your service is not unseen. Your sacrifice is not unnoticed. And your presence, in my darkest moment, gave me the strength to keep going." The men stood in silence. Some blinked back tears. Others simply nodded. Thomas felt his chest tighten. This was why he served. Not for titles. Not for ceremony. But for moments like this, where service met humanity, where duty met love. Kate saluted them once more, and then she walked away. But this time, she was not walking alone. William was waiting by the door. The children ran out to greet her, and as she knelt down to embrace them, the guard watched. and they understood. She was not just a princess. She was a mother, a wife, a survivor, and she was home. Inside the palace, Kate sat by the window one last time. She thought about the walk, about the diagnosis, about the fear and the pain and the fight, and she realized something. The hardest moments in life do not define us. They reveal us. They strip away the masks, the pretense, the perfection, and they show us who we truly are. She had been afraid of being seen, afraid of being weak, afraid of being human, but in walking beside the guard that day, she had learned the greatest truth of all, that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the most courageous thing a person can offer. And in that moment of silence, surrounded by soldiers who stood for duty and honor, Kate had found her own. She was not a princess because of a title. She was a princess because she had faced the unthinkable, and she had walked through it, step by step, breath by breath, and she was still standing. Outside, the guard continued their march. The boots hit the ground in rhythm, steady, unchanging, a heartbeat of resilience. And Kate, sitting by the window, smiled because she knew now. Life was not about perfection. It was about showing up, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. And she had shown up. She had walked beside the guard, and she had walked back into her life, stronger, braver, more human than ever before.